The first time I tried playing this game, I didn't last 3 minutes. I literally had to turn it off, sit there in total silence, and just think for a second before trying again. See, I came into this expecting a classic racing game. I mean, it's right there in the title, 007 Racing. But what I actually got wasn't a race at all. What I got was a brutal test of my patience that felt less like driving a sleek spy car and more like steering a World War I prototype tank having an absolute seizure. Welcome back to the PlayStation Marathon, the series where one total newcomer attempts to play and review every single PS1 game ever released in alphabetical order. We are on game number 3, and guys, the early game honeymoon phase is officially dead and buried. Today we are tackling 007 Racing, which was released back in 2000 for North American markets. Now, as usual, I didn't look up a single thing before launching this game, which means I thought we were getting a fun arcade-style driving game, maybe a gritty Need for Speed clone with gadgets. I had absolutely no idea what kind of clunky, painful 7-hour driving shooting simulator I was actually walking into. Let's break down how a game named Racing managed to completely abandon the track. Let's set the scene for where this title fits into the massive PlayStation landscape. By the time the year 2000 rolled around, the original PS1 was nearing the absolute end of its life cycle. Electronic Arts held the massive James Bond multimedia license alongside MGM Interactive, and they handed over development duties for this specific project to a studio called Technics. When you boot the game up for the very first time, it actually does a pretty decent job mimicking the two iconic highly successful Bond games that came right before it. You get the classic studio logos, followed immediately by a long stylized cinematic cutscene featuring a montage of iconic high-speed driving sequences pulled straight from the movie. The classic Bond arrangement kicks in, and honestly, everything feels like it's right on track. It tricks you into thinking you're in for a high-budget cinematic treat, but that's exactly where the pleasant surprise is going to a halt. So what do you actually do in this game, you might ask? Well, you spawn directly into a mission map, drive around, shoot down enemies, blow up hostile vehicles, and destroy targets using a variety of classic weaponized spy gadgets. Every single level hands you a strict list of specific objectives you have to fulfill, and a lot of them come with a time limit that's way too strict and unforgiving. And if you're hoping the core mechanics redeem the experience, think again. Mechanically speaking, this game does absolutely nothing well. The clunky controls are incredibly unintuitive and frustrating. I spent the first half of my playthrough losing my mind because the game doesn't even let you adjust your control layouts from within an active mission. You have to completely whip back out to the main menu just to look at the options. And when you finally arrive at that menu, you can't even remap your buttons manually. All you can do is toggle between a handful of predefined control presets. Except, here's the absolute kicker. Every single preset option features the exact same button layout. I felt like I was genuinely losing my sanity trying to navigate it. The handling didn't really start clicking for me until I was about halfway through the game, and even when it didn't make the missions feel less miserable to play through. On top of that, James Bond legendary state-of-the-art vehicle apparently feels like it's constructed entirely out of styrofoam. You are telling me the 007 is driving an elite piece of British military engineering that can get completely shredded and defeated by a couple of random dudes standing around holding standard pistols? It's ridiculous. The absolute lowest point of my entire 7 hours was the final mission. Chasing down a moving plane using these heavy tank-like mechanics really did a number on my mental health. Visually, this game isn't doing itself any favors, even by old-school standards. Everything across the maps felt completely flat, grey and dead. The character models look incredibly bizarre, and the enemy NPCs work as if they've completely forgotten how human legs operate. And if you think I'm being too harsh, allow me to present the NPC movements from Tomorrow Never Dies, a game that was released in 1999 by the same publisher. The second I loaded into the first level, the textures were immediately wobbling all over the place, giving you that classic unstable PS1 polygon jitter. Now, if you're using modern emulation setups and play around with your settings a bit, you can tweak it enough to make it look somewhat presentable. But man, playing this on a standard CRT television back in the day must have been an incredibly rough visual experience. Some areas are an exception though. The New York levels actually feature decent art direction, but overall, it's just a bad looking game. As for the audio, it's a total mixed bag. The soundtrack is so forgettable that as I'm sitting here writing this script, I can't even record a single melody or vibe from the missions. The general vehicle sound effects and atmosphere are completely made as well. But I'll give credit where it's due. The voice acting is very good. I actually loved it. In fact, the single most memorable highlight of my entire playthrough was listening to the hilarious police radio chatter during the escape mission. It's so good that for a moment, I actually forgot how miserable this game was.
Alright boys, we've got ourselves a situation. A boat, some crazy sports car, and an alleged kidnapping. Get down to the riverbank on the double.
10-4, Sheriff Pepper. We're on our way.
Going into this, I couldn't comprehend how a dedicated Bond racing game would even attempt to form a coherent story narrative. I thought, is James Bond entering a professional racing championship to save the world by winning a trophy or something? Thankfully, no. The plot follows a high-ranking European diplomat and corporate businessman named Dr. Hammond Litter, who plans to hijack a massive shipment of high-grade NATO weapons. His grand master plan is to smuggle them directly to international terrorist organizations by hiding them inside consumer cars rolling right off his factory assembly lines. So it's up to us to stop him using a garage full of classic gadget-filled vehicles from the movies. The writing itself is completely mid, but as I mentioned, the characters' voice lines are actually pretty fun to listen to. The real issue here is the delivery. The only possible way you can actually follow the plot is by sitting there and reading massive paragraphs of text before a mission starts. If you skip those paragraphs, you are effectively just playing a clunky driving shooting simulator while a British guy yells in your ear about how rare the paint job of a vehicle is. There are multiple moments during the campaign where you are driving around an incredibly tight cramped room thinking, shouldn't one just open the car door, get out on foot and do this manually? It makes zero sense, but hey, the game demands you stay behind the wheel. As you can probably guess from everything we've talked about so far, 007 Racing didn't exactly leave behind a legendary legacy in the gaming industry. It didn't capture a massive fan base and it mostly just quietly disappeared into the background of retro history. Unsurprisingly, the professional critics weren't exactly lining up to praise this one, leaving it to a mediocre 51 on Metacritic. Paul Anderson over at Game Informer didn't hold back, describing the visual presentation as ugly and nasty, though he did admit a few of the mission designs weren't half bad. But here's a fascinating piece of forgotten history I uncovered after finishing my run. A full official sequel was actually planned for the PlayStation 2, but it was completely cancelled, never to see the light of day. And honestly, after spending 7 hours struggling through the mechanics of this first entry, I really don't think anyone needs to guess why they decided to pull the plug on that franchise's future. So what's the final verdict after 7 long painful hours? Look, I didn't enjoy this game, at all. Electronic Arts made some truly bizarre choices with this project. Some of the individual missions are actually built on decent concepts, but those segments would have been absolutely wonderful if they were just integrated as minor driving sequences inside the previous 2 traditional Bond action games. Isolating them into their own standalone driving game feels completely pointless and hollow. I definitely wouldn't recommend 007 Racing to anyone looking for a genuinely fun retro gaming experience today. That being said, it's 2026, you can easily find and play this game for free online if you know where to look. So if you're a die-hard completionist or you're just morbidly curious about where the experimental late-era PS1 blunders, sure, go ahead and check it out for a quick laugh. But for me, it stands as a fascinatingly frustrating milestone for game number 3 on our massive marathon journey. That officially wraps up today's episode of the marathon. I want to know your thoughts on this one. Did anyone out there actually play this obscure title back in the day? And did you somehow manage to actually like it? Let me know your honest thoughts down in the comments below. Next time, we're moving right along to the 4th game on our alphabetical list, and I'm praying it has actual functional controls this time. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single step of this massive marathon. Take care of yourselves and I'll see you in the next episode.